Welcome back everybody to the second part of the Key Candidate Moments series here at the halfway point of the Candidates tournament, and we're going to continue with the remainder 4 players that we haven't analyzed as of now. And I'm going to start with one of the co-leaders of the event, Jan Nepomniachtchi. In this position, I think this was one of the most important moments in this tournament for him, because I think it gave him the confidence that he can simply outplay most of these guys from quite equal positions. And this was a Petrov and Wang Hao simplified the position quite nicely. Of course, he still has a little bit of space advantage, white that is, but not much more than that. And if you advance too much on the king side, then potentially your king could become weak and you could be in danger. Black has only one idea in this position. He wants to get his king closer to the center as soon as possible. If he manages to do that, his position is going to be beautiful. And Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces understands that and takes the necessary risks to create complications and try to pose some problems for black. He could easily just play the move king to g2, slowly push his pieces a little bit forward, but unfortunately that wouldn't be enough. He understands that and he immediately takes action. And I think this is one of his trademarks. He's not afraid to take action. He's not afraid to change the character of the position, change the structures of the position. And this has been giving him the edge in most of his games this tournament. In this position, he played the move h6, immediately trying to box the king on h8. Of course, if you take on h6, then I'm just simply going to take back, and you're going to have some serious problems because the pawn on f6 is going to be a weakness. I'm also threatening to invade with a queen via f8. Still, slowly, I'm going to be able to create unnecessary problems for black. So, of course, after h6, the natural move was g6. Once again, the same plan applies for black. I'm still trying to get the king to f7. I still do not have any weaknesses. And actually, from a structural point of view, it is white who needs to pay a little bit of attention, because if you exchange the queens, for example, imagine just the queens off the board at this point. I'm just simply going to go knight to f7, and the pawn on h6 is actually going to be lost. Also, if I get the king to f7, then I could potentially have ideas of g5, put the king to g6 if the queens are no longer on the board. And again, the pawn on h6 is could become a liability for white. Surely Nepomniachtchi understood that, and he understood that he needs to continue with a very active plan. And he played the move c4, a very nice practical move, which simply threw Wang Hao off his rhythm, because after d takes c4, b takes c4, he had to take a step back, kind of shift his mind from his idea, his preconceived idea that he needs to get his king at all costs in the center, and just realize that he actually needs to play the move knight to f7, a very important move to keep the attack on the pawn on h6, and the queen is going to be stuck to the defense of the pawn on h6. Of course, I'm going to be able to play the move d5 potentially. Still, I'm going to be able to improve slowly my position, but it doesn't seem like there's a clear way for white to make any sort of progress. Instead of that, he didn't play the move knight to f7, which was critical. He played the move king to g8. Objectively, the position is still very close to equality. Unfortunately, from a practical point of view, white is starting to get a lot of attacking ideas, and that's sometimes all you need. He played the move queen to h2, threatening to go to b8, and actually it's pretty much impossible to stop white from going to b8. You don't have the move queen to e8 because the knight is going to fall. Play the move king to f7, c5, knight to b5, queen to b8, queen to d7, which was a huge mistake. And this is what happens when you start posing problems to your opponent. In this position, knight takes d4 was the right move. And after queen to b7, you still have the move queen to e7. You're going to take this pawn. I'm going to take the pawn on c5. And the position is most likely going to be very close to equality. Nevertheless, from an optical perspective, after queen to e7 and the exchange of the pawn on a6 with the pawn on c5, I'm the one with a faraway pass pawn on the a file. You're the one with quite a weak king, because any checks that are not met with a queen on the 7th rank are going to allow me to potentially capture the pawn on h7, get the queen on the king side behind the pawns. I have a lot of options, and optically it just simply no longer looks very good for black. Of course, with an engine in front of us, we can say that, oh yeah, this is just an easy draw. But from a practical perspective, is far from that. And even a 2750, 2760 player like Wang Hao was unable to tame the position. He played a move queen to d7, and after queen to h8, the position is just simply winning for white. I think this definitely gave a huge boost of confidence to Nepomniachtchi, and this is why I believe this is the key moment for him so far in this tournament. Next one I want to talk about is Wang Hao and what is his key moment in the tournament, and that I believe was a clash with Anish Giri. He could have went, this is round 2, he could have went 2-0 at this point, and that would have been a huge result for him, and probably would have propelled him into the lead, and who knows, maybe he wouldn't have let it go. But he seems to have problems in the endgames. It seems like he's just unable to find the killing blow in the endgames. He gets the advantage, he beautifully builds a very nice strategical advantage. He gets the pawn, he's a pawn up, he has bishop against knight, there's another weakness on d5, and now at this point he just chooses the wrong plan. He played the move bishop to d3, knight to c8, e4. Why would you exchange one of my weaknesses? Why would you simplify the position? And then I'm simply going to be able, as black, as we have seen in the remainder of the game, I'm going to be able to construct a defense based on the dark squares. So I'm going to put the rook on b6, knight on d6. Slowly, Giri went out of the bind and secured the draw. Instead of that, I think a much better plan would have been to keep this knight tied to the defense of the pawn on d5. Put this rook on the c file. Once again, you cannot, I'm controlling the knight, you cannot move the knight because I'm just going to invade with the rook. Rook to c2, then slowly rook to d4, and then I need to find a way to create another weakness, and that is going to be via g4. I'm going to play at the right moment g4. If you take on g4, I'm going to take back, then I'm going to be able to create a passer. That's going to be another weapon that black needs to worry about. If you don't take on g4 after g4, I'm just simply going to be able to exchange myself on h5. You're going to take, and then the bishop on e2 is going to have another potential target on h5. It's going to be a very, very versatile piece. The bishop on e2 right now is defending the pawn on b5. Very difficult to attack the pawn on b5. Of course, you don't want to give an exchange for it. And the knight, once again, is stuck to the defense of d5. Misunderstanding there. He just didn't understand that why would he exchange the pawn on d5, and I think this is a mistake he shouldn't make, because he's such a good technical player and he plays amazing chess. It seems like in these critical moments, and we've seen that in his game against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave as well, he was a pawn up once again in the endgame, and he wasn't able to materialize his advantage, which is unexpected from a player of his caliber. So I think this game pretty much was critical for his tournament in round 2. Another player that I want to talk about is Grischuk, who is always in time trouble. It seems he has been complaining that he just simply cannot concentrate, he doesn't feel in very good shape, and it shows, because he is known as a time trouble addict, but still, going in time trouble every single game is just simply not going to give you a lot of chances in a field with so many strong players that are not going to make huge mistakes. He hasn't won a single game, but he hasn't lost a single game, and I think this is pretty much the trademark and of his tournament so far. The fact that he's not losing, he's not getting punished, and this one was one of those moments. MVL was white, he played a very good game, and at this point he had a golden opportunity. He played a move bishop to a3, c5, e6, lured by the prospect of penetrating with a rook on the 7th rank and recapturing the pawn, the sacrificed material. Bishop takes c5, knight takes c5, rook takes c5, f takes g5, rook takes c7, king d6, rook takes c5, sorry, f takes g5, rook takes c7, king d6, rook takes c4. The problem is now, with the a pawn supported by the rook behind the pawn, is just going to give me as black enough counter chances to equalize the position, and we've seen that happening. Grischuk was once again let off the hook, and I feel this is something that's been happening in this tournament. We've seen it in the game against Fabiano Caruana as well. He needs to stop going into time trouble. He's going to allow himself to have much more chances if he manages to avoid that. And last but not least, I'm talking about the wild card, Alekseenko, who of course is not in great shape. He's on -2 and he's struggling a little bit in this event. But he had a golden opportunity against Jan Nepomniachtchi. And if that would have went different way, I'm sure his tournament would have been completely different. I'm talking about the moment when black Jan Nepomniachtchi played the move g6. And at this point, I simply do not understand how he was able not to play bishop g6. Bishop g6, if you take, I'm going to simply take on e6. And the fact that my queen enters your position is just going to be deadly. Unfortunately for him, after g6, he didn't see the move bishop to g6. He played the move h5, and slowly the position petered into a draw. I feel he's simply not finding his form. Maybe he's slowly going to get back into it, but for the moment it seems like he's a level behind all the other players. And that was it with the Count's Corner and the key candidate moments.